I'll tell you this much before we begin. The night my nephew looked me straight in the eye and claimed I owed him my reputation, something in me shifted. He spoke as if my life was a resource he could withdraw any time he pleased. I didn't make a scene. But that was the moment I knew a line had been crossed so cleanly it left a mark. If you've ever been pushed past your limit by someone you trusted, tell me your story in the comments. I still remember walking into the nines that evening expecting nothing more than a simple investor meet and greet my nephew had insisted on. Ryan sounded confident on the phone, almost eager, and part of me wanted to believe he was finally steering his life in a steady direction. That hope carried me through the lobby until a hotel employee stepped into my path and pulled me aside. "Sir, you should be careful," he murmured. "The man named Ryan has been telling guests you're backing his project financially." Those words landed hard. A strange pressure built in my chest, but no reaction left my mouth. Years of managing crews on chaotic job sites had trained me to stay still when something hit wrong. The employee waited, maybe expecting anger, yet all he got was a short nod before he returned to his station. My steps felt heavier as I headed toward the conference room. Ryan's voice echoed before I reached the doorway, loud, upbeat, full of confidence he hadn't earned. A group gathered around him, their faces turned to a screen behind him. My name sat on the slide in bold type, listed under Senior Advisor. Credibility anchor. Credibility anchor. Hearing that phrase in my head brought a strange sting, something between disappointment and disbelief. Ryan spotted me and waved like he'd just introduced a guest of honor. "There he is," he announced, "the man who's been guiding our technical review. Folks, meet my Uncle Michael." Several people reached out to shake my hand. Their grip carried expectation, not curiosity. Ryan kept talking fast, stacking phrases meant to reassure seasoned professional, 30 years of experience, trusted figure in the region. None of it matched anything I had agreed to. A woman asked, "So you'll be overseeing the risk evaluation personally?" Before answering, a glance toward Ryan told me he wanted me to nod along. His smile tightened, almost warning me to follow the script. No confirmation came from me. Only a neutral, controlled response. "I'm here to listen tonight." Ryan jumped in before they processed my answer. "He's being modest. We've discussed the structure extensively." The room shifted subtly. People leaned closer. They wanted security, a name they could attach their money to, and Ryan had handed them mine without hesitation. Standing among them, a sense of distance formed between what they believed and the truth sitting right in front of them. No argument would fix that in this moment. Making a scene would only hand Ryan another excuse to twist the story. So I kept my place and listened, tracking every line he used, every claim he built on my reputation. He ended his presentation with a confident clap of his hands. "Let's move to the preliminary commitment forms. Nothing binding yet, just your intent to partner with us." A table with folders opened near the front. People stepped forward. Pens clicked. Ryan gestured for me to join him. Instead, a slow breath steadied my ribs. My heel shifted back. Then, another step carried me toward the exit. The last thing I heard was Ryan calling my name, but the sound drifted behind me as I crossed the threshold and left the room without a word. My phone started buzzing before the door even closed behind me. First one message, then another, then a chain of alerts that stacked on top of each other until the screen lit up nonstop. Colleagues, former subcontractors, a project manager I hadn't spoken to in months, all asking the same thing. "Are you joining Ryan's venture? Is he using your credentials for a tech review? Did you sign on as an advisor?" Each note carried a tone of surprise, mixed with curiosity, the kind that spreads fast in professional circles. Someone had snapped a photo of the slide with my name on it, and that picture made its way through nearly every investment chat group in Portland. Standing in the parking structure, I stared at the stream of messages, while a low ache settled in my ribs. A few steps toward my truck didn't bring any clarity. Leaving the conference room had spared me from feeding Ryan's story, yet now the silence worked against me. People were filling in the gaps on their own, and not in my favor. The phone rang again. This time it was Mark, my site team lead. "Mike, I need to ask something," he said, lowering his voice. "Management heard rumors you're involved in a private investment. They want to confirm you're not mixing company resources with outside projects." That sentence cut deeper than anything Ryan claimed upstairs. "You know me better than that," I answered. "I do, but they want something on record. You should get ahead of this." After the call ended, the phone felt heavier than before. A man can work decades to build a reputation and see it questioned in minutes by something he never agreed to. Thoughts began to tangle: anger, disappointment, a dull sense of betrayal. None of it helped me decide what to do next. A walk through downtown gave me space to breathe. My feet carried me toward a small bar near Pioneer Courthouse Square, a place I'd visited in calmer times. Familiarity offered a brief sense of shelter, so I stepped in and took a seat at the counter. Not long after, Dana Brooks slid onto the stool beside me. We'd known each other for years through mutual contacts, and she had a knack for sensing when something wasn't right. "You look like someone rearranged your whole day," she said. You could say that. What happened? A short explanation was enough. Dana listened without interrupting, her expression sharpening, as I described the slide with my name printed across it. "Michael, if your name is tied to a financial commitment, you're the one holding the bag if something collapses." He didn't say anything about commitments. I replied, though the words felt thinner the moment they left my mouth. Maybe he misunderstood how these presentations work. Dana angled her body toward me. "Did he ask you to endorse the project?" "No." "Did you approve the use of your credentials?" "No." Then he didn't misunderstand anything. He acted like you belonged to the pitch. Hearing it framed so plainly brought a sting I couldn't push aside. A part of me wanted to defend Ryan, old loyalties, old promises to my late brother, but the truth had already begun to show itself. Dana saw that hesitation. "You're trying to protect him because he's family," she said, "but you're also protecting the people he's misleading. If he keeps using your name, you'll be the one answering for it." A long breath left me as her words settled in. She had always been direct, and that clarity helped cut through the fog. Still, the idea of confronting Ryan felt heavier than any steel beam I'd ever lifted. My phone pinged again. Another message, this time from the hotel management. "Per your request, the recording of tonight's meeting will be delivered to your email shortly." The timing stopped me mid-thought. "I didn't ask for a recording," I said. Dana raised an eyebrow. "Maybe someone thinks you'll need it." The bartender refilled our glasses. Dana tapped her finger lightly on the counter. "You have decisions to make," she added. "Let the evidence lead you. Don't let guilt make the choices for you." Her words stayed with me while I headed back toward the exit. The evening air didn't calm anything, but momentum pulled me forward. My phone vibrated again, signaling the arrival of the hotel's video file. Watching it would be the next step, though I didn't open it right then. Instead, I walked to my truck and sat for a moment, letting the engine idle, as I thought through everything that had unraveled in a single hour. The inbox continued to fill. The video waited, and the first crack in whatever trust remained between Ryan and me widened another inch as I pulled out of the lot. The video from the hotel loaded slowly, as if my laptop hesitated to show me what I already sensed. Once it started playing, every sentence hit harder than the last. Ryan wasn't vague or careless. He was deliberate. Clear as day, he told the room. "My uncle will personally guarantee the technical risk. He's the anchor behind this phase. Hearing that in his own voice knocked the air out of me. During the meeting, he'd spoken quickly, mixing half-truths with confident gestures, but watching it again stripped away any benefit of the doubt. He had sold a promise that never existed. The phone rang while the video continued in the background. A well-known investor, someone respected in our region, came on the line. "Michael, I want to confirm your coverage timeline," he said. "If you're guaranteeing the technical liability, we'll need your terms documented." A pause stretched before I answered. "I'm not guaranteeing anything." Ryan didn't have my permission to say that. "That's serious," he replied. "People are acting based on that statement. You'll want to address it before commitments go out." He hung up without anger, but the weight in his words stayed with me. If someone at his level treated the claim as legitimate, the misinformation had spread wider than I imagined. Another email arrived from an address I didn't recognize, one of the hotel staff. The subject line read, "For your awareness." The message was brief. The employee explained that before the event, Ryan requested a VIP room to be prepared for the honorary representative of the project. He'd used my name. He'd spoken as if everything had been settled and approved. The staffer added, "I hope this helps clarify what was presented to us." The more pieces gathered, the harder it became to maintain the belief that Ryan simply misunderstood professional etiquette. A small part of me still questioned whether I was overreacting. That tendency, the instinct to shoulder responsibility rather than confront family, had served me poorly before. Doubt circled in my mind. Maybe all this noise was the result of my own stiffness. Maybe he meant well. Maybe I should have stopped him earlier. Those thoughts dissolved when I tried to check the shared folder Ryan had sent days ago. The login failed. A notification appeared. "Password has been changed." The group chat he added me to returned an error. He had cut me off completely. That was no accident. If someone believes you're a partner, they don't lock you out of the workspace. They don't tighten control unless they fear what you might discover. Old messages still lived on my phone. Those carried subtle pressure requests, framed as obligations, references to my experience that didn't feel like flattery, but leverage. I started gathering everything, every draft, every note, every file he once shared, so casually. Anything that could be downloaded, saved, or archived was moved to a secure drive. A past conversation came to mind, and I opened the call log. One short call stood out from earlier that afternoon. I replayed it through an external recorder, preserving every word. "Uncle, don't make this complicated," Ryan had said. "You owe the family. This is nothing compared to what you should have done already." Hearing that sentence again, unfiltered, settled something inside me, not anger, but clarity. That wasn't the tone of a man asking for guidance or partnership. It was entitlement, with a thin layer of familiarity stretched across it. A small red icon flashed on my banking app. At first it seemed like another routine alert. When the details appeared, a sharp chill ran through me, a note flagged for verification. The message read, "Confirm involvement in investment guarantee." The bank wanted confirmation because my name had surfaced on a financial document tied to the project. No transaction had occurred, but there was enough reference to my identity that the system triggered a check. My hands stayed steady, though something low in my chest tightened. This had gone far past a slide on a screen or a careless introduction. Someone had taken my name into a financial request. The implications rose thick and undeniable. If a bank believed I was tied to a guarantee, then Ryan or someone working with him had crossed into territory no excuse could soften. Morning traffic moved slowly across the bridge, giving me too much time to think about the bank alert still sitting unanswered in my messages. By the time I reached the job site, my stomach felt tight enough to knot. Mark met me near the trailer's, hands in his pockets, face drawn in a way that told me the conversation ahead wouldn't be routine. "Mike." Management needs you to pause the Westbrook project, he said, until everything with the investment rumor is sorted out. It landed like a blunt blow. That project had been on my shoulders for months. Losing momentum wasn't just inconvenient, it risked the entire schedule. This rumor is based on lies, I said. I know. But they want to protect the company from liability. They're asking for documentation that you're not involved. He walked away to brief the crew, leaving me standing among equipment and half-finished framing that normally steadied me. Work had always been the place where things made sense. Today it felt like each responsibility leaned away from me, unsure whether to trust the person carrying them. While I drafted an email to HR, my phone buzzed again this time with a link from a colleague. "You seeing this?" the message read. The link opened to a recording from a virtual meeting Ryan held an hour earlier. His tone sounded composed, almost sympathetic. "My uncle is dealing with work pressure, so he hasn't been able to clarify his role," he told the investors. "He's not rejecting the project. He's just overwhelmed right now." Hearing that twisted something deep in me. It made me look unstable. It painted hesitation as weakness. And people were already repeating it. The clip appeared on private social channels used by local investors. Comments piled in, most of them assuming I was wavering or unsure of my commitments. A notification from one of our suppliers followed. "We're putting our contract on hold until your situation is clear. No offense, just good business." The message was blunt and transactional, the kind sent by someone who doesn't want trouble near their ledger. There was no room for anger, not yet. Reactions like that usually grow from ambiguity, and Ryan was feeding that ambiguity with just enough polish to sound reasonable. Instead of firing back publicly, I started cataloging everything. Screenshots of the live stream, logs from the job site software, a saved copy of the investor email that had been forwarded earlier. These weren't weapons yet, but they were the beginnings of a record. The hotel responded to my earlier request, confirming that the full recording of the in-person meeting could be provided in its raw format. I asked them to send it as soon as possible. A new email pinged right after. This one came through my company account. "Michael, we received notice from an external party claiming you're considering a personal financial opportunity. Please review the conflict of interest policy." My jaw tightened as I read it again. Ryan had sent something to my employer framed just the right way to imply I was exploring private ventures during a major construction contract. No accusation, just a heads-up carefully worded to protect himself while pushing suspicion onto me. The damage hit harder than anything up to that point. For 3 decades, my name had stood for reliability. Crews came to trust my decisions. Engineers relied on my assessments. New hires used me as the example of consistency. And now all of that teetered because one person decided my reputation was a tool he could bend for profit. Mark stepped into the trailer as I reviewed the message. "Anything I can do?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "I need to get ahead of this. You will. But you should talk to someone who knows how to handle messes like this." Dana came to mind immediately. Her background in finance and her blunt way of cutting through confusion might be exactly what I needed. By late afternoon, I walked toward the office building where Dana's contact, a lawyer she trusted, kept a practice in Pearl District. The halls were narrow and filled with the murmur of people finishing their workday. The attorney, a straightforward man named Caldwell, invited me in as soon as he heard why I'd come. He listened carefully, asked for copies of everything, and took notes while I explained each step Ryan had taken. "Misrepresentation," he said, tapping his pen on the desk. "Possibly fraud. Definitely grounds for a cease and desist. You don't have to launch anything today, but you should be ready." The folder he handed me felt heavier than its contents. It wasn't justice, not yet, but it was a path forward. Walking out of the building, the day held a kind of charged stillness. Emails, screenshots, recordings, all of it sat in my bag, waiting for whatever came next. The sun hadn't fully set, and people were still rushing between offices unaware of the shift happening in my life. My steps carried me toward the street, the folder tucked under my arm, as I weighed the decisions ahead and headed into the evening. The drive home didn't settle anything. My thoughts kept circling the same question. How far had Ryan taken this? The answer arrived sooner than expected. An anonymous email hit my inbox just after sunset. No subject line, just a single attachment. The sender's address looked like a temporary account, one of those throwaways people use when they don't want to be traced. Opening the file felt like stepping onto thin ice. Pages of draft proposals unfolded on the screen, all bearing Ryan's edits. Near the top of one slide, highlighted in a yellow comment box, was a sentence that stopped me cold. Use my uncle's name to boost trust. No need to ask, he won't push back. Reading it once was enough. Reading it twice made my jaw clench. This wasn't ambiguity anymore. It was intent. Scrolling further, more red flags appeared. Adjusted revenue claims, inflated partner lists, a timeline padded with names of companies that had never signed anything. The metadata pointed to a former employee of Ryan's, someone I vaguely remembered meeting years earlier. Her name surfaced at the bottom of one revision log. A second message from the same anonymous sender followed. He did this on the last project, too. Be careful. That line brought back a memory I hadn't revisited in years. My younger brother Ryan's father sitting across from me during his final months, asking me to keep an eye on the boy. Back then, Ryan had seemed frustrated, restless, but not malicious. I took the request seriously. Maybe too seriously. That promise had kept me soft where I should have been firm. Loyalty can blur judgment, and mine had blinded me for far too long. The phone rang. Dana didn't waste time after hearing the strain in my voice. Tell me what happened now. There's a file, I answered. Draft proposals Ryan edited. Notes suggesting he used my name on purpose. Send it, she called back within minutes. This is worse than you described, she said. You can't sit on this. He's not just bending rules, he's weaponizing your reputation. It's still family, I muttered. It stopped being about family the moment he gambled with your identity. You step in now or he'll bury you under his story. Her bluntness cut away the excuses forming in my mind. The evidence in front of me didn't lie, and neither did the professional consequences already rolling in. While we talked, another email notification slid across my screen. This one came from a distribution list I didn't recognize. Ryan had sent a message to multiple investors saying Michael is temporarily stepping back from his advisory role due to personal matters. He remains supportive, but needs time. Supportive. Time. He made it sound as though I agreed to some staged pause, as though he controlled the narrative, and I simply followed his lead. The message painted me as unstable, reinforcing the fiction he'd been building since that first meeting. A heaviness pressed through my chest as I read the investors' replies. Understood, Ryan. Keep us posted. Wishing your uncle well, hope things settle soon. Not one of them questioned the premise. Not one reached out to me. Watching the thread unfold, it became obvious I was being backed into a corner with no room left to maneuver silently. Ignoring the situation would only deepen the damage. Letting Ryan speak for me meant surrendering every piece of credibility I had left. Taking no action was no longer an option. The room around me felt smaller with each passing minute, but clarity rose from the chaos. This wasn't a misunderstanding spiraling out of control. It was a deliberate campaign to use my history, my name, my restraint, and turn all of it into leverage for a venture I hadn't touched. A long breath steadied me. I grabbed the notes I'd started compiling earlier, the screenshots, the messages, the clips from the virtual call. They scattered across the table as I sorted them, but collecting chaos sometimes gives a man something real to hold on to. The cursor blinked in an empty search bar while I debated my next move. Filing a complaint would drag things into the open. Involving lawyers would escalate matters fast. Staying silent would protect no one, not the investors, not my company, not myself. People say, the truth will set you free. What they rarely mention is the part where it kicks open doors you've been afraid to touch. My laptop hummed softly as the decision settled. No speeches, no announcements, just an understanding that it was time to reclaim the ground I had lost inch by inch. A new folder appeared on the screen once I typed its name, Reclaim. The folder I created filled quickly. Slides, emails, draft, documents, screenshots, clipped audio, each piece labeled by date and time so no one could claim confusion later. Sorting through it all took most of the night. No anger pushed me at that point. Calculation did. A man reaches a stage where outrage burns off and something steadier takes its place. Dana met me the next morning near Pearl District, where Caldwell's office overlooked a row of older brick buildings. He ushered us in without ceremony. After reviewing the files, he leaned back, tapped his notes, and said, "This isn't just exploitation of your reputation. What he did qualifies as misrepresenting a professional endorsement. That's fraud, in plain terms." Hearing it framed that way tightened something low in my abdomen. Not surprise confirmation. Before we could continue, the receptionist poked her head in. "There's someone asking to speak with Mr. Hartley. Says it's important." A few minutes later, a woman stepped through the doorway, hesitant but determined. I recognized her vaguely, Lauren, one of Ryan's past girlfriends. She sat across from me and pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. "I'm not here to defend him," she started. "But I need you to know I had nothing to do with what he's doing now." "What made you come forward?" I asked. She opened her bag and placed a flash drive on the table. "He used my resume once, said it was just for a mock-up. Later I found out he showed it to investors as if I'd agreed to join his team. He's done this with more people than you think." She didn't linger. As soon as the file transferred to Caldwell's computer, she excused herself, shoulders tense like someone escaping a bad memory. Her visit didn't shake me. It clarified the pattern. Ryan wasn't improvising. He had a method. My tolerance had simply given him a shield. Work resumed after she left. Requests went out to every potential witness, including the hotel staffer who sent me the anonymous tip. "Send copies of what you have," I wrote. Anything that shows how he referenced me. Keeping the message short helped me maintain control over the situation. A notification interrupted the workflow. My secondary email account, the one used for site approvals and vendor communication, had a login attempt from an unfamiliar location. A second alert followed password reset requested. My teeth pressed together as the reality sank in. Either someone close to Ryan or Ryan himself was trying to access my information. Just as I finished setting two-factor authentication, a text appeared. "Stop dragging this beyond family business." No name, no number I recognized. The threat wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Not a warning, an attempt to push me back into silence. Dana looked up when she saw my expression shift. "What now? Someone's trying to get into my accounts." She exhaled sharply. "We need to lock everything down. Move your files offline. Keep your phone on airplane mode unless necessary. Don't use any shared networks." Her decisiveness steadied me. We spent the next hour transferring evidence to an encrypted drive. She wiped my browsing history, disabled auto-sync functions, and had me sign out of every device I wasn't holding in my hands. "This isn't carelessness," she said. "He's trying to keep control of the narrative. People behave this way when they fear the truth more than the fallout." The pattern grew clearer by the minute. Ryan wasn't stumbling. He wasn't panicking. He was escalating, hoping pressure would make me retreat. He understood how heavily responsibility weighed on me and assumed I'd fold to avoid conflict. He miscalculated. Caldwell returned with printouts summarizing potential legal steps. Some options meant formal filings. Others involved sending certified notices to investors. None of them were easy, and all required commitment. "You're not obligated to launch anything today," he said. "But you should verify facts with at least one major investor before deciding your next move." The idea made sense. If the investors understood the extent of the misrepresentation, they'd stop enabling Ryan's scheme. They'd also recognize I wasn't complicit. After leaving the office, I walked a short distance before dialing a contact I trusted more than the others, a man named Wallace, known for being measured and level-headed in matters involving risk. When he picked up, I kept the conversation brief. "We need to talk in person," I said. "Somewhere private. How urgent enough that I won't discuss it over the phone." He hesitated only a moment before agreeing. "Tomorrow morning. My office. Bring whatever you think I should see." We ended the call there. A small sense of direction surfaced, still unsettled, but solid enough to move forward. I tucked the encrypted drive into my coat, stepped off the curb, and headed toward my truck, already running through what needed organizing before the meeting. Wallace greeted me with a firm handshake before leading me into his office, a space crowded with binders and marked-up blueprints. He wasted no time. A folder lay open on his desk, placed deliberately so I could read the first page. My name sat near the top in bold type. "Take a closer look," he said. The document spelled it out plainly: Michael Hartley, technical risk guarantee up to $250,000. A signature attempted to mimic mine at the bottom. The strokes were close enough to fool someone unfamiliar with my handwriting, but anyone who had worked with me for years would have spotted the inconsistencies. "Where did you get this?" "Ryan sent it to the investor group last week," Wallace answered. "He implied you'd confirm the terms at the next meeting." Shock didn't come, not after everything I'd uncovered. Still, seeing my name misused at that scale pushed a cold sensation down my spine. Before another word passed between us, my phone chimed again. This time it was a message from HR. "Mr. Hartley, we received a report alleging you've used the company's name for private investment representation. We recommend a voluntary suspension until the matter clears." I read it twice. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. 3 decades of consistency reduced to a question raised by a stranger hiding behind an anonymous submission. Wallace studied my expression. "You're dealing with someone willing to burn anyone to stay afloat." Before responding, another alert arrived. A link to a live stream, Ryan speaking energetically to his investors. "Family should stand together," he said, voice steady and performative. "My uncle wants to support us, but he's scared. Pressure at his job, pressure at home. He's stepping back for now, but I know he'll come through." He smirked, as if he understood me better than I understood myself. Comments rolled in. Fast. "Maybe he's not cut out for this. Thought he was reliable. Is he abandoning the project? Watching him shape a story where I was the weak link didn't sting as much as it should have. It clarified the landscape. Ryan wasn't merely reckless. He was rewriting the truth in real time, molding perceptions faster than I could counter them. A new text buzzed through this time from Lauren. "I found a scanned copy of the contract Ryan forged with your signature. Sending it now." The file followed seconds later. There it was, my counterfeit signature on a second version of the guarantee. The lines curved too smoothly. Ryan had always been heavy-handed with a pen. Whoever forged this tried to soften that habit. Wallace leaned in. "You have enough to shut this down. But you need to confront him with others present." The decision formed without hesitation. The situation wouldn't resolve through emails or back-channel requests for clarification. It required daylight witnesses' documentation consequences. The walk back to the Nines carried a strange sense of return. That hotel had been the start of all this, and it would be where the story turned. Ryan stood near the main lobby chatting with two potential investors. His expression shifted when he saw me, surprise, first then calculation. He opened his mouth to start one of his polished lines, but I raised a hand slightly. "We need to talk," I said. The investors turned toward us, waiting. Ryan forced a grin. "Sure, Uncle. Let's step aside." No steps aside. I set two folders on the nearby table. Wallace, having followed behind me, placed the original investor copy beside my documents. A couple of hotel staff recognized the tension and slowed their pace without fully stopping. I opened the first folder. "This is the contract you circulated," I said. "The signature is not mine." Ryan's smile flickered. "You must have forgotten I don't forget signing a $250,000 guarantee." Next came the email threads showing edits in his own handwriting. Then the extracted voice note where he declared, "I wouldn't push back." Each piece placed carefully, not for theatrics, but precision. A few people nearby exchanged glances. Investors listened without speaking. Ryan attempted one last pivot. "You're misunderstanding the intention. I was trying to move the process forward. Families help each other." One investor cut him off. "You forged a signature." Ryan's throat tightened. It wasn't forged. It was placeholder formatting. Wallace stepped in. "The metadata disproves that." The color drained from Ryan's face. The investors didn't shout, didn't argue. Their silence carried more weight than any confrontation. One of them, the most influential among the group, pulled out his phone. "We'll be forwarding all documents to our legal team. Expect a formal request for explanation." Several copies of the forged agreement were collected. A hotel employee confirmed the original event recording had already been archived for legal purposes. Ryan tried to speak again, but no sound formed that wouldn't worsen his situation. People around us began to drift away, murmurs rising as they moved. His shoulders sagged, no performance left to give. When the last investor stepped toward the elevator, the momentum of the moment carried me forward. I picked up the documents, tucked them under my arm, and walked toward the exit without looking back at him. Ryan remained rooted where he stood, the weight of exposure settling over him, while the lobby slowly returned to its usual pace. The packet of evidence went out early the next morning, recordings, forged drafts, messages, and the statements that tied everything together. I sent copies to my company, the investors, and the attorney handling the financial inquiry. Not long after, my phone rang. HR appeared on the screen again, but this time their tone had shifted. "Mr. Hartley, the director, said we reviewed the documents. Your position is fully reinstated. We apologize for the misunderstanding. It's clear the accusations were fabricated." Relief didn't rush in. It arrived slowly, like something testing the air before settling. An email followed from the state's Financial Investigation Unit. They wanted a formal statement. Ryan's name sat in the subject line beside terms like identity misrepresentation and fraudulent guarantee. Words that once felt unimaginable were suddenly part of a straightforward process. Family members began calling throughout the day. A few wanted to verify what they'd heard. Others wanted distance from Ryan now that the pattern of behavior had surfaced. No one defended him, not after seeing the documents with his edits and comments. Some expressed shock, others disappointment. I listened, but didn't offer explanations. Toward evening, Dana stopped by. She didn't ask about the fallout, the investigation, or the calls. She just sat at my kitchen table and watched me finish sorting emails. "What now?" she asked. "Work," I answered. "Life." "That's vague," she said. Her tone wasn't teasing. It was prompting me to consider something deeper. The question lingered. Not what the legal system would do. Not how others saw the situation. What I intended to do with the part of myself that kept agreeing to burdens I didn't owe. A memory of my brother surfaced the night he asked me to look after Ryan. I had carried that request like an unpaid debt for years, letting it shape decisions that should have been firm, letting guilt override judgment. I kept thinking I owed him something I admitted. "No, you owed your brother honesty," she replied. "Not self-destruction." She stayed long enough for the weight of her words to settle. Then she left without giving additional advice, trusting I knew what to do next. The next morning I drafted a petition for the court straightforward without emotion. It requested a formal prohibition against Ryan using my name credentials or professional record in any business dealings. Protecting myself wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of boundary. The filing went through by noon. In the weeks that followed, work returned to its normal rhythm. Meetings, site inspections, ordering materials, tasks that once felt routine now carried a strange new ease. Not because the burden had disappeared, but because I wasn't dragging someone else's mistakes behind me. On a Saturday that felt still enough to hold a new decision, I registered for a climbing course at Columbia Gorge. Something about the idea had always appealed to me, learning how to ascend with intention, testing balance, trusting gear, and footing. Life had been demanding that same discipline, and I was ready to practice it somewhere beyond my desk. The class met early. Hikers gathered around a guide who introduced the route. No dramatic scenery pulled at me. What mattered was the feeling of standing somewhere unfamiliar without dread. The trail climbed steadily switchbacks cutting through rock and brush. Breath grew heavier but steady. Muscles protested, then adjusted. A man walking ahead glanced back once. "First time out here?" he asked. "Feels like it," I said. He nodded and continued on. No further questions. No assumptions. Near the top, the group spread out naturally. Some paused to drink water. Others pressed forward. I found a spot along the ridge, not hidden, not elevated dramatically, just a section of ground overlooking the expanse below. Wind threaded through my jacket. A few hikers passed by, chatting softly. Thoughts didn't rush in. They loosened. The noise of the past week's accusations, forged contracts, messages dripping with entitlement didn't vanish, but they no longer dictated my footing. People say climbing teaches you to trust yourself again, one hold at a time. Maybe that's true. Maybe trust is built in quieter ways, choosing where to place your weight, choosing what not to carry anymore. When the group started heading down, I adjusted my pack and joined them. Nothing symbolic marked the moment. No declarations or dramatic breaths. Just the steady decision to follow the trail forward, carrying only what belonged to me.